Show of hands. How many of you out there are here for the first time tonight? Oh, wow. I was not expecting that many. Welcome. Thank you so much, and especially to who brought you here. You are now part of the community, and you're joining us in making Achieving Cures together. Without further ado, we'll move on with this evening. I'd like to introduce the two people that really make things work, and quite frankly, we would not be here without either of them. Pleased to announce the Executive Director of Achieving Cures Together, as well as its founder and president, Christy Lansdowne and Peter Westerhouse. Mm-hmm.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Woo! You know, it's so great looking out and seeing all the familiar faces and new faces. Really touched. Really touched. If you're new to the cause here this evening, would love to get an opportunity to shake your hand and meet you. So I'll be around after the show. Normally, as I give my talk here this evening, I like to speak really from the heart. But as we celebrate 10 years tonight, I took a little bit different approach and actually wrote out my speech here. It also helps that I wasn't delivering my second baby the night before, like last year. But I'd like to start by asking a question for everyone to kind of think on here, and that's what happens when a health situation turns your life upside down? Dreams are crushed, financial pressures mount, tears are shed, and hearts are broken. And many prayers are said. If I had to guess, many of you sitting here tonight are familiar with this type of situation, or you know someone that has gone through a challenge. I also know there are others that wish they could be here tonight, but can't because they're in the midst of a battle, and for those people, keep on fighting. While navigating these health challenges filled with agony, despair, and isolation, a shared vine that we're all reaching out to grab is hope. Ladies and gentlemen, this grasp for hope is what launched Achieving Cures Together in 2015. Prior to starting Achieving Cures Together, I was a 20-year-old living out my dreams as a college football player when severe ulcerative colitis turned my life upside down. In less than 2 years, I went from a 235-pound linebacker playing in the Big Ten, down to 148 pounds, 30-plus bowel movements a day. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. Life was living hell. And not to mention, on top of that, the psychological toll of just being sidelined from my passion of football. While suffering this immense pain, I was searching for anyone or anything to help me. And that is where I found a glimmer of hope with Dr. Alexander Khoruts, who you'll be hearing from later this evening. Dr. Khoruts was pioneering a new field of medicine focused on the gut microbiome and restoring our microbial communities that are often decimated through our diet, some environmental factors, and some other things. Seeing this new and exciting frontier and personally benefiting from it, we launched Achieving Cures Together to help accelerate this work. We started with humble beginnings. It's hard to believe that we're now celebrating 10 years, which really got me thinking, what did the world look like 10 years ago? Well, first off, 10 years ago I had no gray hair, and the Vikings lost a home playoff game on a missed 27-yard field goal in negative 6-degree weather. Classic Minnesota heartbreak. 10 years ago also marks the launch of the Apple Watch, which I'm sure many of you are wearing this evening. And hard to believe, but in 2015, the word of the year was actually an emoji. The hit movie, Back to the Future, which came out in 1985, was actually referring to the future as 2015. So they were dreaming of hoverboards and flying cars, and we still are today. Lastly, the song Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran was number 2 on the Billboard 100, And I was going to sing it for you all tonight, but I'm not going to. Instead, I'd like to think out loud as it relates to achieving cures together and what's been accomplished over the last 10 years. During the past 10 years, Achieving Cures Together has partnered with the University of Minnesota Microbiota Therapeutics Program, and together, we've accomplished a lot. Notably, we've helped on the encapsulation of gut microbes, where you're able to do a microbial transplant with a capsule instead of a colonoscopy, far less invasive. We didn't stop there, and they now have a formula to add to a drink, where you can mix the powder and do the microbial transplant that way, especially for children or people who have difficulty swallowing pills. During this time, we've helped treat over 8,000 patients suffering from the antibiotic-resistant superbug C. difficile. Not only are these 8,000 patients saved, but so are their families and their significant others. Further, we've helped support over 25 clinical trials, some of which you'll hear about this evening. And none of this would have been done without the help and support of each and every one of you. So thank you. As with any pioneering effort, we have faced resistance as well, and we keep persevering. 10 years is truly a milestone worth celebrating. However, longevity is not what we started Achieving Cures Together for. We started ACT to accomplish and to find cures. And folks, this is exactly what we're doing. So, it's my pleasure now to introduce Christy Lansdowne, who will be sharing about some of the exciting things that are happening with Achieving Cures Together.
Thank you. Today, we are proud to celebrate 10 years of impact through Achieving Cures Together. We are profoundly thankful for your partnership in supporting breakthroughs that are reshaping patient care and the future of medicine. Over the past 10 years, your support of $3.2 million has translated to the production of over 65,000 microbiota treatments that have been used to treat 8,000 patients with recurrent C. difficile infections and support clinical trials targeting over 25 separate health conditions. These clinical trials span across antibiotic resistance, cancer recovery, cardiovascular health, digestive system disorders, the gut-brain connection, and immune system disorders. As we look forward to the next decade, ACT has several exciting initiatives underway that are advancing our mission, and I'll highlight 3 tonight. 2 of our research partners, Dr. Adams and Dr. Kramalnik-Brown at Arizona State University, are making incredible progress in microbiota transplant therapy research in patients with autism. They have discovered that 90% of patients with autism have extremely elevated levels of toxic microbial metabolites that come from gut bacteria and yeast. They also have developed a urine test that has been highly successful in screening patients with autism through testing for these toxic yeast and toxic yeast and microbial metabolites. In their first clinical trial, Dr. Adams and Dr. Kramalnik-Brown demonstrated that one of these toxic metabolites, P. cresol, was reduced after microbiota transplant therapy. There is a phase 2 clinical trial underway for patients with autism to further study these connections. And fundraising for a pivotal phase 3 clinical trial, the final step required to seek FDA approval for microbiota transplant therapy, is also underway. You can learn more directly from our research partners through a webinar that's on our website as well. ACT is also thrilled to announce that we're partnering with Dr. Levi Teigen, a nutrition expert, to develop a book. It's designed to answer the most common question we receive: how do we eat to support our gut health? Dr. Teigen, who's here with us this evening, received unparalleled clinical and research training with Drs. Khoruts and Dr. at the University of Minnesota, and will be translating that experience and knowledge into practical and accessible book for everyone. While we're still in the early stages of development, we're hoping to include information on management of some common diet-related struggles, as well as partner with experienced chefs to translate what you're learning to what you eat. The ACT community has also driven momentous progress in inflammatory bowel disease research. Through a generous donation match, ACT is fully funding the first year of a phase 2 ulcerative colitis clinical trial, led by Dr. Byron Vaughn, who's here with us tonight. Dr. Vaughn is a leader in IBD research at the University of Minnesota, and this trial is currently finalizing regulatory approval before beginning patient recruitment. You can learn more. We're hosting a webinar on October 21st at 6 p.m. Featuring Dr. Vaughn. And so if you're interested in signing up, we've got a QR code at the check-in desk, or you can register on our website. The future of medicine is unfolding now. As we enter the next frontier of modern medicine, microbiota transplant therapy is offering new hope and a life-changing impact in patient lives. Tonight, you'll have the opportunity to hear firsthand from a patient who's experienced microbiota transplant therapy, as well as from our esteemed research partners, and see what your support has meant to patients and their families, and learn how far this research has come. It is my pleasure to introduce one of the leading scientists in microbiota transplant therapy research. Dr. Alexander Khoruts, director of the University of Minnesota's Microbiota Therapeutics program, has not only pioneered the development of microbiota transplant therapies, but is also the steady, calming presence who provides us full attention and care to each patient. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much. All right. As Christy implied, we really are the little engine that could. And I'll tell you a little bit about how it developed and a little bit of science, not too much. So now that you've had some food, I'll take you through the journey, what's happening to it now. So it probably passed through the esophagus. It's maybe sitting in the stomach, a little pouch that still mixes things up, then pushes down in the small intestine. That's where most of the absorption of nutrients takes place. And then it's going to enter the colon in a couple hours. That's where most microbes live, right there. See, if you really zoom in and look at them, they're also eating. So what you're eating is also feeding them. And this is why doctors tell you to eat fiber. The small intestine is not very good at digesting fiber. That's the stuff for the microbes. And in the process of eating, they also, as they metabolize, as they digest things, they make different chemicals of their own, and those chemicals communicate with our bodies. Those gut microbes is a major metabolic organ in our whole system. Second only to liver, as far as just the number of chemicals that are circulating in the bloodstream. 10% come from the gut microbes. And this really wasn't appreciated until this really 21st century. Doctors just give you antibiotics, throw a bomb in there, without really thinking, what does that do? And usually they recover. So then the middle part is those gut microbes. It's a very complex microbial community. There's about 100 bacterial species there. There's yeast and fungi and other domains of life. But they interact with all parts of the human body. If you think about it, your immune system, it's supposed to fight bad bugs out there. But on a daily basis, where are the microbes that the immune system is seeing? It's in your gut. That's the majority. So part of the immune system job is to shepherd those microbes, make sure that they are friendly. At the same time, those microbes are our microbes. They're part of our body. They want us to do well because it's good for them. So they also communicate with us and they make their own chemicals. It's a whole interconnected network. They're important for the gut barrier function. They're important for calibrating the immune responses and directing them, as you can see shortly, against things you don't want, like cancer or infections, and at the same time, not making sure that the immune system doesn't veer off and cause things like inflammatory bowel disease. Now, there's other things there that impact your gut microbes. The diet, for example, it's kind of obvious. What you're going to feed them is going to be important for them. Somehow, exercise, or what our body does during exercise, does communicate to the gut. And if we look at people who are athletes and do regular exercise, they actually have a better, greater diversity of microbes than those who are sedentary. So it's a two-way communication. That's why the arrows go both ways. Whether you like it or not, social interactions also matter. Microbes are a communal resource. If you're just living in a hospital and that's all you're around, you're probably picking up some unfriendly microbes there that are seeing a lot of antibiotics. All of those things are modifiers. What you got from your mom through early development is kind of there, and then it drifts and oscillates, and who is there, it drifts only very slowly. So if you really want to restructure the microbiome, you have to do a massive intervention, and that's what we do. We transplant the entire microbial community in whatever formulations. And that the objective there is to really restructure the microbiome, which may have veered off in some unhealthy state, have a fresh start. And this opened up a whole new frontier of medical therapeutics. As Christy already alluded to. So, Pete has, told you about 2015, but he came to see me in 2013. So it took us like 2 years to really think through what Pete was trying to achieve. He went through a painful personal journey, as he alluded to. His dream was shattered, but he had a vision that this happened for a greater reason. There was a meaning to this, and he had to figure out what that meaning was. And I think, as I remember, he felt being caught in this medical industrial complex that a lot of people were making a lot of money around him. He was given very expensive medications, and he wasn't really getting better. And he was growing frustrated. And maybe it was a naive dream, but he felt if only people worked together, if only they worked for cures, if only they cared enough, he wouldn't be in that pickle. That's where the word achieving cures together came from. And then we sat down and thought, well, how can we change the world? What is a little organization can really do? And the most obvious thing was we had an opportunity to build our own manufacturing unit that would be independent of drug companies, that would feed clinical trials, and that would collect collaborators around us. And we wouldn't be driven by commercial interests. We really wanted to achieve cures together. So that's an overview of most of some highlights that Christy already mentioned. Not surprisingly, a big movement was in inflammatory bowel disease. That's when the microbes and the immune system in the gut don't really get along, and somehow the immune system lashes out. And all the therapies right now are directed at calming down the immune system, but it works half the time. The other half, it often veers off and still fails. There's this microbial component that we're trying to address, and Dr. Vaughn here, who's here today, is really leading that effort in two major versions of this disease, ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. Turns out there's a lot of interaction between the gut and the brain and the nervous system. And that's because As I mentioned, there's a lot of chemicals being made in the gut. And some of them interact with the nervous system or are neuroactive. And we've discovered that, at least in severe autism, there is a signature that we can pick up in a urine test of microbial metabolites that are not healthy. They're coming from the gut. And we've done actually more than one trial. We're at 4 now, phase 2 trials, and they all show superiority over placebo. When we restructure the gut, a lot of the symptoms that are really impacting the families do get better. A lot of them are GI symptoms. But if you have a patient who it's not verbal, they can't really articulate that they're in pain, and autism is something that's characterized by hypersensitivity to about everything, whether it's skin or gut pain, it results into many adverse behaviors. So if you can fix the gut, a lot of the behavioral symptoms improve as well. As she said, we're really moving to that arm of research, hopefully toward FDA approval, and that may take a couple more years. There's trials in modulating the immune system in things like food allergies. We have a trial in Boston Children's on peanut allergies, but also a number of trials trying to optimize cancer therapies. The biggest thing in cancer therapy world that happened is immunotherapy, trying to target the immune system against the cancer. But if somebody took antibiotics, it doesn't work very well. So there's that calibration that the gut microbes do is also adjunctive treatment to immunotherapy. So we have collaborators in Fred Hutchinson, emerging one in City of Hope in Texas, one over here. That's kind of where we are today, and I'm not going through all the trials. You're going to hear about some exciting work shortly from one of our university collaborators in surgery. But I'll just go through 2 photos. This is where we were in 2013. That's when Pete came to see me in clinic. That's the entire team. And we were at a state fair trying to educate state fair goers about gut microbiome. This was us last year. So I'll visit with you one more time, but first we'll hear from Cyrus Jahansouz, who is going to tell you about really exciting work in colon surgery, which is one of the big themes right now. Cyrus and I go back a while. He was a surgery resident in our institution, and he did some work in weight loss surgery with us, and made some mice lose weight with bariatric surgery. He's an incredible individual. He exudes enthusiasm, and he's an example of the kind of collaborator we have who is going to change the world.
Thank you. So thank you very much. That's way too kind, but I am here and the way I am because of him. So whether that's good or borderline insanity, it depends who you ask, you know. I should have edited this before I brought my 8-year-old daughter. Camilla, please close your eyes. I apologize. You have to excuse my sense of humor. So I'm, as Dr. Khoruts alluded to, I'm a colorectal surgeon at the University of Minnesota. Dr. Khoruts introduced me to this field in 2014, and it kind of, once I got in, I knew I was stuck. And so why does this matter? So let's talk a little bit about that. Microbiome is linked to colorectal cancer. That's the #1 cancer under the age of 45. When do we screen patients? 45 years old. You have 3 to 4-fold higher risk if you're 40 years old now than you were in 1980. It's linked to diverticular disease. It doesn't get as much attention as cancer, but sure as heck, it is a major, major source of morbidity and mortality in this country. And the same number of operations are performed for diverticular disease as they are for cancer, just not as advertised. Thirdly, which you've heard before, inflammatory bowel disease. These are the three main indications for surgery, all linked to the gut microbiome. Not only that, mainstay for each of those three common diseases is surgery. The microbiome is linked to devastating complications after surgery. You could do a perfect operation. If you have the wrong bugs in your gut, they will destroy your new colon connection, which scared the heck out of us. We think, well, we'll just throw in extra stitches. Wrong, that's incorrect. If you have the wrong bugs, they will literally eat through your stitches, perforate the colon, and increase mortality. That's lesser known. It's also linked to, and that contributes to infectious complications, as well known here and identified. It's linked to antibiotic resistance as well as C. diff. That's clearly well known. Why does this matter? Some more. There are 500,000 to 600,000 colon operations performed in this country alone. So that's how many people are undergoing an operation for something that is clearly linked to the gut microbiome. That's a lot of people. That number is going up as cancer keeps going up, and well, we don't really have any preventative ways of reducing that risk besides expanding colonoscopies. I mean, how many colonoscopies can we do under the age of 45? So we're limited from a biological understanding of preventing this, which means surgery is going up. So that's a major problem. So as I mentioned, anastomotic leaks, that's when that new colon connection. So you go into a colon operation, ideally you think, all right, I'm going to get that segment resected. I'm going to put those two ends together. That's called, for whatever reason, it's called an anastomosis, and that's when that leaks, that's called an anastomotic leak. There are devastating complications that impacts morbidity, mortality, and sure as heck, appropriate cancer treatment with chemotherapy. They're linked to an increased risk of mortality in 20%. Healthcare costs triple. Patient often needs ostomies, additional procedures. We actually even routinely perform temporary ostomies for rectal cancer because we have no way of reducing the risk of those leaks less than 20 to 30% with standard cares. This is a major problem in surgery. So just to give you a little bit of an overview, what is our standard scenario? This is across the board, pretty much standard of care for our current clinical scenario. You have a patient who undergoes an elective colonoscopy, and unfortunately, you find a cancer. They're going to the operating room for removal of that segment of that colon to treat their cancer. What do we know besides trying to modulate things? Well, we can blow things up real well. We blow the heck out of their colons by giving them what's called surgical bowel prep. So in addition to the wonderful purge that we go through during the colonoscopy, we give antibiotics to really, as we think it, decontaminate the gut. Guess what? We give more IV antibiotics during surgery. Why do we do this? It's because colorectal operations have the &1 risk for infectious complications. Makes sense? We're dealing with a complex set of bugs in the GI tract. And we've shown that when we do that, by blasting everything, we reduce risk by 50%. Then they're hanging out in the hospital, and there are not exactly the friendliest bugs that are there. You have essentially a denuded gut that you've blasted free. What's going to overtake the gut? It's imagining if you got a lush forest, you clean out the forest. Well, now it's a free-for-all, right? We have no microbial repopulation protocols at all. Patient hangs out in the hospital. Now, we've studied this, and if you take a look really close, the colon looks like that, right? Pretty terrible. But in all seriousness, we're the first group that actually, this bowel prep started in the 1970s, and in typical surgical fashion, it works. We don't study it for another 50 years later. So we were the first group who actually asked the question, what happens to the gut after you prep it with all this stuff? It looks miserable. With those 2 days of prep, more than 50% have a completely dysbiotic environment for at least 6 months. Now, if you think that composition is linked to those diseases, doesn't really make a lot of sense that we're leaving the gut as this innocent, as this bystander that we're not really regulating to modify not only surgical outcomes, but the longitudinal outcomes related to their disease processes, specifically cancer, cancer risk, and all that kind of stuff, which I would argue is incredibly important. So, I would argue, so as I mentioned, no protocols to fix the microbiome after surgery right now. This is terribly inadequate, and I think we can do better. So our goal has been, for the last 10 to 12 years, when I started tailing Dr. Khoruts, was to regulate the microbiome after surgery to actually optimize outcomes, whether it be directly related to what's bringing them to surgery, the disease, or their surgical outcomes, their 30-day surgical outcomes, so they can get through it and actually live an improved quality of life, get through the operation, the point of the operation. So why can we do this? Because we know how to microbiome. I'm sorry, it's a new verb I'm coming up with. So these, what I'm going to describe are the first 2 trials in the world that are actually doing this. We are the ones that are doing it. The first protocol was taking exactly what Dr. Khoruts has essentially pharmaceuticalized and mastered into the medicine that it is to repopulate the gut 2 days after surgery. Why do we do 2 days? Well, I think it's rational and logical to take advantage of the fact that we are wiping the heck out of their guts in the first place. For many reasons, we're seeing this terrible shift in the composition of the gut bacteria. If those are leading to their current state, it makes sense that maybe we should just wipe the slate clean and then give them so-called good stuff and restart. Perhaps that'll improve outcomes. So the way we first started this was we recruited 12 patients. This was done last year, 12 patients. And just to make sure it actually gets to the gut, traditionally, of course, you think you repopulate the microbiome through a colonoscope or whatnot, but if you think about it, surgeons are not going to want to do that. You have a new connection. The way you do a colonoscopy is gas the heck out of the colon up. You're thinking about all those stitches and all that stuff you placed. I'm a surgeon. I would never allow anybody to do that. So we created a new protocol. 2 days after surgery, where the antibiotics have cleared your system so they don't kill the gut, and before the new bugs come back, we placed a skinny little feeding tube down the nose into the small intestine, gave the 4 ounces of the good stuff, pulled it out. We did that in 12 patients. And so we are putting the results together, but in brief, the results are, they look fake because, and I'm obviously an enthusiastic person, as you could tell, but they are extremely, extremely encouraging. So far, we see a reduction of the nasty bugs that are still there, despite our nuclear bombing of them. The reduction of the pathogens that cause leaks and infections. We see, a reintroduction of the resilience of really healthy, good bacteria. We see a restoration. Not only are the bugs there, and do they persist for at least 6 months after surgery with that single dose, they are actually functioning. They're making the metabolites that are well recognized for decades to actually be healthy for the colon lining. So that was our first trial. We did 12 patients in 6 months last year, where that's pretty good pace. We are now on to the oral equivalent that you heard of earlier, the freeze-dried microbiota in essentially 2% chocolate milk. So we give that same thing 2 days after surgery. We started this trial in March. We've performed it in 11 patients, and we have 5 more consented through middle of October. So as you could tell, as Dr. Khoruts alluded to, I'm not a very patient person. So, who can benefit? Just to sum up, everyone who undergoes colorectal surgery can benefit. That's more than 500,000 patients a year. This is a huge void right now. And no one is even remotely close to thinking about this. They didn't even know that the bacteria was this dysfunctional after surgery. So we are I'm extremely excited. We've done this in 23 patients. We have obviously a bit to go. We need to prove that it works in having a clinical benefit, but from the microbiome side, which is where you actually lead to your clinical benefit, the results are clear. So once again, just want to thank, so our lab, Dr. Chris Daly is on the screen left. He's my PhD partner. We are both children of Dr. Khoruts's brain and whatnot. Now we're our lab, and we've actually had the incredible luxury and fortune of training 5 surgical residents, 2 of which you see there are now fully fledged colorectal surgeons, and a train of colorectal residents in our microbiome lab. And thankfully, it's been extremely lucky. They've been among the most competitive applicants because of the field that we're researching, which as a clinician, as a surgeon especially, it's extremely hard to understand how putting microbiology and surgery together, and I enjoy twisting the heck out of their brains, and they love it for it. So that's what I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Doc. One more round of applause for Dr. Jahansouz. Wow. Now, for those of you that have signed up for ACT's newsletters, you know that we like to send out stories periodically from the research teams and updating on the impact on people's lives and what's actually happening. From time to time, there comes a story where reading it doesn't have the exact same impact as it does to hear it yourself. So please welcome back to the stage Dr. Khoruts and former patient Lynn Murphy.
Well, we're honored today that one of our patients made a trip all the way from New Jersey to tell her story. It's one thing to hear a story from an investigator and being all excited about their work, but to actually hear what a patient goes through in their life is humbling. It's a different perspective. When you're in a doctor's office and you hear a little snippet and you think you can do something, it's a tiny fraction of what a person actually experiences. So I thank Lynn for coming over and sharing her story.
Thank you. Okay. So when I tell my story, many people ask me, how did you not know you had a congenital defect in your pancreas until adulthood? The truth is, there were signs all along. I remember my first bad stomach ache. I was about 10 years old, and I knew something wasn't right. But when I went to the pediatrician, they dismissed it as constipation and sent me home. While growing up, I stayed very active in sports and activities, which also was a great mental distraction to avoid focusing on my stomach pain when it would appear. Pain reared its ugly head again, unfortunately, when I was in college. There were a lot of flare-ups. I had more severe stomach pain and many frequent trips to the bathroom. So, when I moved to California from the East Coast for college, I had more extreme stomach pain than I did in my earlier childhood. And I was admitted to the ER. That was the first time I was told I had pancreatitis. The doctors implied it could be a result of extensive drinking and or partying and using drugs, which I've never done. And when in reality, I had just had a beer every now and then, and I never, like I said, never did drugs. I left the hospital with a sense of dismissal and not knowing why I was sick. And the impression that I felt, the doctors felt that it was my fault. My symptoms impacted my ability to get to class. I was losing weight big time. I still had experiencing severe pain and needed special parking passes to get to class. Despite my health challenges, I finished college during an intense pancreatic flare with the support of my professors and my employer. Eventually, the pancreatic flare receded, and I thought it was all behind me. So after college, I put applications out everywhere. I got a great job in Florida, and they offered me health care at the 90-day mark of employment. About 75 days into my new position, a familiar pain returned, and I became very sick. I went to the ER, where I then again was told it was my pancreas, but they still couldn't figure out what was causing the pancreatitis. I had to resign from my job, and I headed back west as the teaching hospitals seemed better aligned for the care I was needing in San Diego, as this was the advice of my surgeon in Florida. I went to the University of California, San Diego, and the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I still wasn't able to get the answer as to why I was so sick and what was causing it. In all honesty, at this point of my medical journey, I had my last rites read to me about 2 different times, and by 2 different priests who said, oh, you need your last rites. And I said, no, I'm gonna be fine. Thank you for the blessings. As I sat there as if I wasn't present, Father said to my friends, oh, she's in denial. And I said, no, she's not. She's sitting right here. So I can hear you, and it's all gonna be fine. So I decided to move back to New Jersey, and sure enough, 3 months after returning home, I had another flare-up. Finally, there was a doctor at Cooper University, Dr. Adam Elfont, who said, Lynn, we need to do an upper and lower scope, but the potential of causing life-threatening pancreatitis is very real. I said, I already have life-threatening pancreatitis, and we gotta do this. So at 29 years old, I finally learned I had a congenital defect with my pancreas called pancreatic divisum. And during normal early childhood development, most people have 2 pancreatic ducts that fuse or mend in together naturally, and mine did not. Of the remaining 5 to 10% of patients with pancreases who don't fuse properly, like me, only 2% have pancreatitis symptoms and big issues. Dr. Elfont said my pancreas was as hard as a rock and needed to be removed as soon as possible. He wanted me to go to Johns Hopkins for surgery, but I was hesitant to make that irreversible decision, as I didn't want to take immune suppressant medications for the rest of my life. And Dr. Elfont helped me. He listened. So he also helped me to investigate other options, and my friends and family became investigators and a better treatment plan along with us. I've had multiple surgeries with different teams who thought they could help, and ultimately was referred to the University of Minnesota, where they did a complete and rare and specialized surgery to remove my islet cells from the pancreas, clean them, and harvest them in the portal vein of my liver. It's actually called a total pancreatectomy auto islet cell transplant that I had, as if you don't know. The downfall was insurance only covered costs of taking out my pancreas and removing my spleen, because it's so vascularly connected, and closing me up. When I shared the news, I had to come up with the portion of taking out the islet cells, cleaning them up, and harvesting them. So that obviously needed to be done, and it was about $40,000. And when I was at the university, I said, okay, great, I'll see you in about a month or 2. And they're like, no, you're misunderstanding. We have to get the money before we can schedule the appointment. I said, no, I'll see you in 1 or 2 months. And that's how great my family, friends, and community were. And they raised the money for me. And I was able to schedule and have it done. So on July 15th, 2011, I had the total pancreatectomy done at the University of Minnesota, and my health journey didn't stop at that point. Over the next 10 years, my body was adjusting to multiple surgeries I had experienced, missing my pancreas, gallbladder, spleen, appendix, part of my intestine. I had numerous hospitalizations for bleeding ulcers, C. diff, and sepsis infections that resulted in extremely high fevers and seizures. And ironically, while I no longer had a pancreas, I was still diagnosed with pancreatitis. And I had more rounds of antibiotics than I can remember. In January of 2021, back on the West Coast, now in Santa Barbara, I remember having one of the scariest episodes of my life. I went from enjoying a music festival 1 minute to, vomiting blood and ending up in the ER and in and out of consciousness due to internal bleeding. I knew I needed to get to the University of Minnesota for care, and the ER of Santa Barbara stabilized me enough to transport me to Minnesota. When I arrived in Minnesota, Dr. Khoruts met me in the hotel lobby and recommended additional testing for the FMT treatment. Dr. Khoruts was able to confirm through my medical records that I in fact did have C. diff for a solid year and a half, and I had qualified for an FMT transplant. After meeting with him, it sure felt like I was finally heard and validated. I think you went in.
To embellish a little bit on Lynn's story, what happens in this rather complex treatment is the gut is restructured. Part of it is cut out along with the pancreas, the duodenum, and then there's some loops that become kind of blind, and there's stasis there, and that becomes a nidus for infections. And what happened with Lynn is she was literally getting hospitalized like monthly with sepsis, life-threatening sepsis, for like 2 years, and giving broad-spectrum antibiotics. And the C. diff part was what allowed us to do this FMT, because that is the regulatory checkpoint for the regulators, that is the one indication where they allow us to do that. But all these antibiotics, it's not just C. diff. The sepsis was driven by other microbes. Under the pressure of antibiotics, they became hostile. That usually goes hand in hand. Bacteria that are feeling, it's like a bad divorce. If you're abusing your spouse, the spouse is going to turn back at you. And that's how those microbes feel. They're constantly getting bombarded, so they're trying to survive and lash out. And that results in sepsis. So at the time, I thought, well, if we attack the C. diff, maybe we can take care of the other bugs. And it kind of worked. And Lynn's story has now been told many times in the workrooms. Her doctor, Marty Freeman, is here today, who is part of the pancreas program. And he's been advocating, we have to do a clinical trial. There's more patients like Lynn. There's like 30 of them having a similar problem. And now, finally, we organized it. We're putting in the application that went off to the FDA. We're going to do this trial. Lynn is really a patient pioneer. And when, however it works out, it's going to advance knowledge how to treat patients like her better. Without patients like that, nothing would happen. So, thank you, Lynn. If I could have my last slide, please. Thanks. There's not many political leaders that are worth talking about. A handful. And this one is, he emerged out of Soviet prisons. For those of the young ones, there was this thing called Soviet Union. It was kind of an evil thing. He emerged out of Soviet prisons and became the first president of the Second Czech Republic. And I got this quote of his: "Hope is not a conviction that something will turn out well, but certainty that we do what we do has meaning, regardless of outcome." We're at the Growing Hope celebration. We can reflect through this journey of 10 years, and I've been privileged to have personally helped about 1,000 patients. Our research has helped easily tens, maybe 100,000 so far, and more will benefit going forward. And I wish it was all a celebration of all the great things, but I also think of all the patients we didn't have the opportunity or resources to help. And along this journey, we also encountered a lot of human ugliness. Drug companies, greed, drug companies that when they see human suffering, they see dollar signs. Bureaucrats appear to have no soul, worry more about regulatory checkboxes than the human lives behind them. And so it has been a journey to actually confront these forces. Yet, I'm not losing hope. The hope is still growing. Part of the reason is my team. It's an incredible team of people who are dedicated, committed to the cause, and know that we are making a difference. Part of it is collaborators like Cyrus, who really exude energy, and I know they will make a difference as well. But a lot of it is actually you guys who come here. They give me faith in the good part of the humanity. Your kindness, your generosity, your concern for your fellow man is what enabled AC2 to happen, to make a difference. It is really an honor for me to be part of this community. And I invite all of you to stay with it. It's important for our soul to do this work. Thank you so much.
Wow. That's all I can say to that. Wow. Lynn, thank you so much for your testimony. Your presence tonight means the world to us and to Dr. Khoruts. And to you, Dr. Khoruts, we are so proud to partner with you and your colleagues who are committed to pursuing excellence and going above and beyond the call of duty. Yeah. Folks, now is the time in the program that we want to take a moment to recognize the impact of not only what ACT is doing within this very room, but also beyond. So if you wouldn't mind, please indulge me. If you could stand, if you have been a patient or have suffered from one of the ailments that has been discussed tonight, please stand. Hold on. Now will you stand if you are a family member or have had a family member or loved one affected by one of these disorders? Family member or loved one. How about if you have a food allergy or know someone that does? That should be everyone in this room. Take a look around. Everyone has their own internal battle, and especially for friends and family to have to witness the suffering on a day-to-day basis. This is why we got started. This is why we exist. Dr. Khoruts referenced there have been tens of thousands of patients that have been treated by the various programs of ACT. We want to be able to do better for the next tens of thousands, if not even more. You heard it here tonight. The new frontier. All you Trekkies out there, you know who you are. You know that phrase. New frontier is not up there. It's right down here, right in the gut. You can be seated. Thank you. I appreciate it. By being here tonight, I'm not sure you realized it, but you had to say yes. You had to accept the invitation. You also said yes to a few other conditions. Yes to educating yourself, hearing from these world-renowned researchers what they're doing and how they're truly impacting lives. Yes to advocating, to telling others about what we do. Whether it affects you or not, someone in your orbit most surely can benefit. And third and finally, yes to supporting us not only with your time as you've done tonight, but with your financial gifts to Grow Hope.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Holy cow. Just the generosity, unbelievable, and so appreciated. As you heard tonight from some of the people that have been healed from this work, the researchers, the team. It's just tremendous, and we are so grateful. The slide up there is kind of the little engine that could, right? And 10 years later here, the strides that have been made are just so immense. And with that, I'd like to thank a couple people real quick. First and foremost, big thank you to Sovereign Estates. Terry and Paul, thank you. Just a phenomenal venue here. Also want to thank all of our volunteers and our executive director Christy Lansdowne. I'd like to thank the board of directors. We have a really active and engaged board, and so appreciate the time and effort and energy that each of you bring to making ACT a stronger organization. And the last thank you is a big one. So a number of years ago, we started an award, the Robert E. Wilkins Award. Robert E. Wilkins, he was my grandfather, who passed away a number of years ago, but as we launched Achieving Cures Together, he was very, very engaged. He helped us launch, was so in tune with the mission and what we were doing. We wanted to honor him by creating an award. And so we've given this award out for a number of years now, to very deserving people that really have exemplified our mission and helped Achieving Cures Together push forward. A fun fact, my grandpa would be 96 today. This was his birthday. So it's a little bit of a special award tonight. And the woman I'd like to recognize here has been the glue behind ACT, whether she knows it or not. She has been in the corner of Dr. Khoruts through thick and thin. Her compassion, her love, and just her care and support for Alex and his team have kept this moving forward. As I started to talk this evening about hope, I don't think we would be where we are today without her. And so it's my great pleasure, my great honor to award the 2025 Robert E. Wilkins Award to Katerina Helebrantova. As Katerina's coming to the stage, I will say this. She is definitely the better half in that relationship. Sorry, Alex.
This is like, I cannot even. I just hope that all of you have someone in your life who can inspire you every day to be a better human being. And I am waking up every day in the morning and I am humbled. I'm humbled by the man who is next to me. And I feel very privileged. So thank you so much.
And we are so humbled to continue to support Dr. Khoruts, his team, the amazing work that's being done. So it's just with great, full heart that I say thank you. It's been a tremendous evening. We so appreciate all of the support, the love, spreading the word. It's amazing, this new frontier, where this is going. A couple just kind of housekeeping items to wrap up here. Again, thank you for the donations if you raised your paddle tonight. As we close down the evening, you'll receive a text message. If you put your phone number in the system, you can follow the prompts to check out that way. Otherwise, please go to the donation table to the side at the conclusion of the event. And we're also really excited to close everything down tonight with a generous donation of a drone show from Rebel Vans. generously donated this. So we're going to start it on the back patio. I know we're running a little over on time, but I think it's going to be really cool. I'm excited to see it. So if you please head out back for the drone show, we thank you very much, and God bless you all.